Welcome to the ultimate guide to pursuing commercial law. Today we're going to be talking about what commercial law actually is and who might be best suited to it, as well as talking you through the practical steps that you will need to take if you want to be a commercial lawyer in the UK. My name is Eloise. I am an admissions tutor here with the Profs. I specialise in law undergraduate admissions. I'm also a qualified solicitor and I practiced in corporate law for about 5 years. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, but also how you could replicate this journey for yourself. So what is commercial law? Well, commercial law is quite a broad term and different people will have different opinions of what this term exactly means. Broadly, we could say a commercial lawyer is a lawyer who focuses on helping a client achieve their business objectives. So this is very much based on assisting business transactions or business goals, instead of maybe another lawyer would help a person with their personal issues, so like a will or a divorce or some kind of property transaction. Instead of like the personal, we're more focusing here on the corporate or commercial. Although commercial law does cover a broad range of legal services, most often commercial lawyers will specialise in a particular area. So for example, an IP lawyer might help a business develop their products and services on the IP or intellectual property side, or a finance lawyer might focus more on financial transactions. But these could be all expressed within the broad heading of corporate or commercial law. So who is best placed to be a commercial lawyer? What kind of qualities and what kind of personality does this career suit the best? Well, it does kind of depend a little bit on the field that you specialise in, as well as on the type of firm that you practice in. But broadly, we could say there are a handful of qualities that will be great for any commercial lawyer. The first thing is commercial awareness. Now, this is one of the most common terms that you will hear if you are applying to become a lawyer or if you're interested in the commercial field. And this basically means an understanding of how your legal services are relevant or helpful to the client's business. So often when we're studying our law degrees, if you've done law or if you're training to become a lawyer, we can think of law as kind of like a more academic pursuit. So we think of it as the theory and we try and ascertain where the laws came from and how they work and our understanding of them. But really in commercial law, what we're looking at is the application of that law to a business problem or a business transaction. So it's not only just like, how does the law work? We might have that knowledge, but the ability of the commercial lawyer is to apply that knowledge in practice, so you actually help the client achieve their goals or objectives using the law as kind of your basis. So to link this back to you and to your personality traits that might be well suited to developing commercial awareness, we might say that a commercially aware person is someone who's very aware of the bigger picture, who has a good understanding of business and finance and economics and maybe even things like politics or international law, as well as their particular field of law, and someone who loves to be involved in the practicalities of applying whatever information they have or whatever knowledge they have into reality using their intellect and their skills. Some other aspects of commercial law often include things like fast-paced or dynamic movement of transactions or of problems that you're solving for the client. So it could be well suited to someone who wants quite an engaging, dynamic type of working life. And often someone who is willing to travel as well, because commercial lawyers can end up helping clients across the world. So there could be some business travel involved, depending on what kind of firm you work for. So in terms of how you get into commercial law, the most common route is to take a qualification with a commercial law firm. So this will essentially mean that you get qualified as a solicitor through the normal process for training. But then once you qualify, or as you're training, you will be exposed to commercial law more so than any other field of law. Now, being a commercial solicitor is not a different regulatory qualification to being a family solicitor or a property solicitor. It's just that you would have a specialism in these fields. So obviously, as you build up your career path, you then have the experience to go and work in other commercial law fields, or you might specialise in a certain type of commercial law. There is also the bar route, so you could work in commercial law as a barrister. And again, this would be really just qualifying as a barrister in the traditional way and then specialising or taking more clients in the field of commercial law. So for law students, let's say you've studied law at university, you would then go on to take the SQE, SQE1 and SQE2, and these are basically qualifying work experience placements and also training or exams that you take in order to become a qualified solicitor. And this would normally be done in conjunction with a singular firm that you then qualify at. So you would take your work experience with that firm. Now, if you're training to become a commercial solicitor, this would normally be with a commercial law firm. There is also the solicitor apprenticeship route now, which means that you can actually get your degree by your apprenticeship, and you can also qualify that way as well. So you would just take your apprenticeship period for 6 or so years, and this would be with a particular law firm, and that would give you the degree and also would qualify you as a solicitor. And again, if you were interested in commercial law, you could do your apprenticeship with a commercial law firm. It is actually the case that most solicitor apprenticeships on the market at the moment are with commercial law firms. And this is really because these firms tend to be a little bit bigger, and they also tend to have a bit more resources going into training and development. So the big commercial or corporate law firms in London are the ones typically offering the degree apprenticeship path at the moment, although not exclusively. If you are a non-law student, you would take a similar approach, except if you're coming in through the SQE pathway, you would also need to do a conversion course from your non-law degree into a law degree, and then you would move through the same route as a solicitor would. And if you are a non-law student on the barrister side, you have a similar kind of process of the conversion course into a law degree, plus then your bar course, your pupillage, and then becoming a barrister. Now let's talk about commercial law in a wider context. How is this actually useful in the world, and specifically in the business world? Now what you'll find as you start to learn more about commercial law is that it really underpins pretty much every major business transaction. So if you think about any kind of business news that you might have read recently, a company maybe selling shares, buying another company, M&A transactions, financing transactions, all of these are underpinned by some level of commercial law. Now, this might not be law that you would normally think of it as, like criminal law or property law. These can be quite legislation-based areas of law. Instead, commercial law is a lot based around the law of contract and agreements and negotiations between different parties. Now, this is something you will study on your law degree if you're studying law, or if you're not studying law, it will be covered in the law conversion course. But the law of contract is absolutely fundamental to most of these negotiations that are formed between different business parties. The role of the commercial lawyer, therefore, is multifaceted. It could be drafting a business agreement, a contract, a sale agreement. It could be negotiating between the lawyers for your client versus the lawyers on the other side for the other party in the transaction. It could be researching a particular area of law. It could be developing your knowledge on an area of law that is becoming more relevant or becoming more regulated. It could be giving advice to a client on a particular type of legal transaction, or really any mix of these things every single day. One thing that you would need to do as a commercial lawyer, again, coming back to this sense of commercial awareness, is have a very good understanding of your client's business. Now, this is absolutely fundamental, because when you give a piece of advice to a client, you're not just telling them exactly what the law says or like something that you learned at law school. You're actually applying it to their particular business, to their goals, to their objectives, and to their business situation. So you need to understand not only a fundamental understanding of the law, but also the ability to apply that to different business structures. It's important to remember that even though you are dealing with businesses, it is still a very personal job. So you have the exact kind of negotiation or communication skills required as you would if you were a family lawyer or in any other kind of area of law. It is still very much talking to people every single day and negotiating with other people about how to achieve a particular result. So skills like communication, to be able to express yourself, to be able to articulate certain legal concepts, especially in a way that is relevant for a business person to hear and understand. This is absolutely fundamental to the role of the commercial lawyer. So one is a really high level of attention to detail. And this is so important in the commercial context, because one slightly intimidating thing that can happen is that one sentence or like one piece of drafting can really turn the entire transaction from like one situation to another. So often as a junior lawyer, you're responsible for checking and double checking documents and making sure that everything is signed correctly and everything is executed in the right way, in order for these huge financial value transactions to go ahead. So that can be a little bit intimidating, but it really does suit someone who is highly motivated, who has a great sense of attention to detail, and someone who's very diligent in the way that they can review and analyze documents. People often associate corporate law with like late nights and very like glamorous lifestyles. You might have watched Suits. You might be thinking like that's the role of the commercial lawyer. I mean, yes and no. Like it can be a very, as we were talking about before, a dynamic career, which is very fast-paced and very exciting. And there can be travel and there's lots of client negotiations and things where you're really getting into it with, you know, the business transactions and the way things are moving quite fast. However, ultimately, it is still like the job of a lawyer. So you will be doing things like reading legal documents, providing legal advice, and essentially just becoming very familiar with the law that surrounds these transactions. What is the future of the profession of commercial law? Well, it's a good question because so many things are developing so fast. So I think there are several distinct shifts that are happening within the field of commercial law. One is obviously the nature of technology. Now, AI means that a lot of the tasks that a junior lawyer traditionally would have done, for example, due diligence, which is reviewing a huge amount of documents and seeing if there are any red flags or things that you want to mention to the client about a particular deal. A lot of that work can now be done by technology in a much more efficient and a much faster way. But this definitely doesn't mean that the need for lawyers will go away entirely. Law is an incredibly important and interdisciplinary profession. And so a lot of the work that you're doing is not just legal analysis, as we talked about, which maybe, yes, could be done by technology, but actual application of the law to a fast changing set of facts. That means that law in the future might be done more in association with technology. So you might be working alongside AI tools or other tools that are helping you analyze or helping you draft, but ultimately still having oversight and strategic direction and creative problem-solving skills still really important. The other thing is that the future of law might begin to become more diverse and inclusive. And this is due to the introduction of things like apprenticeship schemes where people are able to come in with different backgrounds. And this is really exciting for the transformation of law in the future, which will make it much more open and have many more perspectives and just many more opportunities for people to explore this incredible field of commercial law. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please do leave a like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below and we will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. If you have a friend who would benefit from this video, please do send it along to them. And if you would like any support or assistance during your application journey, please do get in touch using the information on screen now. We have a whole team of consultants here at the Profs who are extremely experienced in every single aspect of the admissions journey. And as always, best of luck with your applications.